I will take it away. So hi, everyone. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for coming to our first Asian American Town Hall. I understand Asian American Heritage Month is next month, so we are a little bit early, but I still think this is an extremely timely discussion. I hope everyone is holding up well given the circumstances, but like Albert just said, my name is Yamuna. I'm Taiwanese American. I'm a campaign staffer with Lauren Ashcraft, who you are about to meet in just a few moments, and I will be your moderator. So we are here today to have a candid conversation about the impact of the coronavirus, socioeconomic and otherwise, on Asian and Pacific Islander communities, as well as other frontline communities in the United States. We're also going to set aside time today to discuss the economic stimulus bill that just passed, what it includes, what it doesn't, what the implications may be for immigrant communities moving forward. If we have time, we're also going to open the floor for questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, wherever this is streaming. And we have people monitoring all three platforms. So if you have a question, please don't hesitate to share it with us below, and we will do our best to make time for it. So that brings us to our guests, our candidates here. We are joined here today by 4 Democratic congressional challengers from across the country. We have Lauren Ashcraft from New York. We have Donna Imam from Texas. We have Nabilah Islam from Georgia. And finally, we have Albert Lee from Oregon, all of who are part of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And so without further ado, let's have our candidates introduce themselves, share with our viewers who you are, why you're running, and I guess how your community is navigating this very difficult time. So let's go in alphabetical order, I guess. So Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So I am Lauren Ashcraft, and I'm also a big fan of Yamuna, who's on my team. So thank you for being the moderator. I am Japanese American. My grandmother was from Japan. My dad was born there, and really, really honored to be part of this discussion today with amazing congressional challengers that are bringing about some real change in their communities across the country. And I am running because I believe I have this radical vision that every single person has a full and equal voice and full and equal representation across this country. And my district represents income inequality. I'm sitting here in Long Island City, and looking out my window, I see Queensbridge, which is the largest public housing complex in the Western Hemisphere. And just right beyond Queensbridge, across the river, I see luxury complexes in the Upper East Side. This is my district. We have Billionaire Row and also thousands of people that sleep on the street every single night. And we have 23,000 people that don't have insurance right now in the district, and thousands more that don't go to the doctor because they're underinsured and still afraid to get a huge medical bill. And, you know, I grew up part of a family that felt completely ignored by representation. On one side of my family, my grandfather was killed in a coal mining accident trying to feed his family. And my grandmother, who, as I mentioned, was a Japanese immigrant, while facing xenophobia and racism, was left to feed her family alone and survived off of Social Security checks, which a lot of our representatives have called to cut. I'm not just not calling to cut them, I'm calling to expand Social Security so that it's livable for every single person, and no one should be able to touch it, because families like mine have survived unforeseeable circumstances because of those checks. On the other side of my family, my grandfather fell while he was working one day and unfortunately became a quadriplegic. And I saw another way that people go completely ignored in our country. You don't get a lot of money if you can't work and survive off of disability payments to live. And you can't afford a caretaker. So everyone in my family pitched in and was the caretaker. And I look around my city and see that 29 years after the ADA, it's still not accessible. There's over 50,000 people in my district alone that identify as having disabilities. And the fact that we've allowed a society, a country, and a city one of the richest cities and the richest countries in the world, where people can't use our public transit system because they have a disability. And that's just one example of how people with disabilities are completely shut out from different aspects of our society. I am fighting so that people like my family have a voice, because they don't, they haven't, and they deserve to have one. So that's why I'm running. And I'm really, really honored to be in this conversation with all of you today.
Thank you, Lauren. Donna, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so my name is Donna Imam, and I'm running in Austin, Texas. This is North Austin, suburbs that goes into rural parts all the way to Killeen, which has the largest armored vehicle military base in the entire country. We have more veterans in this district per square mile than any other place in the entire state of Texas. I'm running because when I first started out in my career, and I'm an electrical and computer engineer, during the very first years of my experience, every single assembly worker that worked in my company was laid off. Their jobs were moved to Mexico. Many of them never worked a day in their life again, and none of them had job retraining issues. And this has left a profound impact on me throughout my entire career. So I've tried to help people find good jobs, write good resumes, get promotions, get better pay. And then about 5-6 years ago, I joined a nonprofit and was later elected to that board of that nonprofit. We raised tens of thousands of dollars right here in Austin, Texas. And what I realized from running that nonprofit, that there's only so much a nonprofit can do. And even during the 2008-2009 economic downturn that the entire country saw, and Austin, Texas had one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country, there were people here who didn't have jobs for up to 2-3 years. That's when I realized that we need to do more, that people who work for a living, that get up in the morning and go to work, need to come together, because we create all the value in this country. We create all the wealth, and we need to come together. And by the way, we give away a huge chunk of our taxes to the United States government, but we ask for nothing in return. Think about it. If you go buy a product and you pay for it, and there's something wrong with it, that usually comes with some sort of warranty. Or if your meal at even a restaurant comes out burned, you're probably going to call the waiter and be like, hey, this is unedible. But yet we don't ask of our government for any kind of excellence. We need to ask for our government to deliver on their promises. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I don't want to have to drive out to HEB, which is a major grocery chain in Texas, and have to see veterans begging on the corner of HEB for food. That's not American, and we need to change that. And that's why I'm running for Congress.
Thank you, Donna. Nabilah, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Nabilah Islam, and I'm running in Georgia's 7th Congressional District. This happened to be the closest federal election last cycle. The Republican only won it by 419 votes, and now he's retiring. It's an open seat. So I'm running to flip this traditionally red district blue. And I'm the daughter of working class immigrants from Bangladesh. My parents came to this country about 40 years ago, seeking the American dream to give me and my little brother a better life than the one that they had. And growing up in Gwinnett County, which makes up 85% of my district and happens to also be the 4th most diverse county in the country, I never saw anyone that looked like me at the table. And it really bothered me as a young child, whether it was a school board, state house, state senate, all the way to Congress. How can we have such a diverse community and not have people from our community represent us? And that's why right out of college, I got involved in electoral politics to help elect more Democrats in Georgia, here in the South. And now I'm running to give my district the reflective representation that it's always deserved of its diversity and its values. And because of the last 20 years, Republicans have left our community behind. I mean, I live in a district where almost 20% of this community doesn't have access to healthcare, including myself. I don't have health insurance. I live in a community where we have the highest rate of deportations because of archaic immigration laws. And because of the rising cost of pretty much everything, people are living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to pay rent. So I'm running to represent this community, to uplift working people, immigrants, and people of color, and flip this district blue.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nabilah. Albert, would you like to go
Yes,
next?
thank you. My name is Albert Lee, and I'm running to represent the people of the 3rd District of Oregon to the United States Congress. I'm running because I believe that democracy requires choice. It's something that we haven't had in our district in over a generation. I'm running because I believe that we need to have a representative who knows the struggle, who won't take corporate contributions, and who will truly represent and fight for the people. For me, I'm a 6th-generation American and an immigrant at the same time. I was born in South Korea, where my African-American Army dad met my Korean mom during the Vietnam War, not the Civil War, during the Vietnam War. I grew up in working class St. Louis, next door to Ferguson. I'm a 1st-generation college grad, 1st-generation law school grad, served in the United States Army, and worked in a wide variety of different things, including international trade, project management, law, and have owned my own business. And most recently, I was one of the deans at Portland Community College. What I see here in our district, being one of the most progressive districts in all the land, is basically lip service progressivism. We have a leader who's been in office for 24 years. And during that time, he said the right things, sometimes done the right things, but generally speaking, we need to have someone that's going to push the envelope, someone that's going to actually move the party back to its base in the left. We need somebody who knows the struggle, who's going to actually take care of all the folks that are here in our district. So, you know, when I'm talking about our district here, this is the most diverse district in the whitest state in the land. Here we've had 13 representatives. 11 of them have been men. 2 of them have been women. 100% of them have been white. Right now, we have a federal representation, a delegation that is consisting of 2 senators and 5 representatives. Okay, 100% of them are multimillionaires. 100% of them are over the age of 62. 100% of them are white. 100% of them are property owners. It is not really representative of our state, where 44% of us are renters, where a good 75% of us are below the age of 62, where a good quarter of us are not white. It's time that we have representation that looks like us. And quite frankly, when we're going to be talking about the issues we're going to be talking about today, you're going to see that you're going to need to have that perspective. You're going to need to have the perspective of folks and the vantage point that other folks have in order to really get to the solutions that we need. So I'm looking forward to joining everyone here. One of the things that I wanted to highlight really quickly was that with this virtual town hall situation, I know it can be really difficult for us to have a conversation because we're not all in the same room. So for those that are out there listening to us, we might jump over each other. We might cut into each other a little bit, but it's because we can't really get all of the cues and whatnot, but we're going to really try to make this more conversational instead of preachy. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Yeah, just like Albert said, we don't want this to have like a, candidate at a podium vibe. We want this to seem very casual. We want this to seem really conversational. We want all of you guys watching to feel comfortable, writing your comments below, writing your questions below so that we can address them later on. First of all, though, just to dive into the bank of questions that I have here, the coronavirus pandemic. We all know it has intensified xenophobic attacks on Asian Americans in the United States. Actually, NBC News recently estimated that 650 plus reported acts of racism were carried out in the last week alone. I've seen even higher numbers in the past couple of hours. What do you guys believe that our elected officials can do and should do to fight against anti-Asian rhetoric and ensure the safety and security of our Asian American communities? Please feel free to answer whatever. No raising hands required.
I just feel, so Lauren, and I just feel like what we need is not just passive, not racists leading us, but we need active, vocal, anti-racist leaders. And we keep seeing, like you saying, oh, I'm sorry that there have been 11 hate crimes against Asians in New York City last week alone. like just saying that isn't enough. You have to call out racists, and you have to be anti-racist in how you lead and how you speak and in everything that you do. And that it's not enough anymore to just be passive. It's really, are you for or against racism?
No, seriously. I mean, you got it right there. I mean, we've got a leader of this country who has done everything he can to peg this to being a problem from China. You know, he's called it everything from Wuhan virus to the Chinese disease and everything else. But you know, and he's at the top of our executive branch. But he's not the problem. He's not the only problem. Part of the problem is exactly what you said, which is that we're not hearing anybody call this stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I haven't heard my representative call them out. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's sort of like, what are we going to do? We need people that are going to be actively interrupting the hate. We're going to have people that are going to be actively interrupting the racism.
No, I totally agree. I feel like that people need to be speaking up and holding people accountable. Look, Donald Trump, hate has existed before Donald Trump, but him and his rhetoric and the rhetoric coming out of his administration does give permission to his followers in Fox News to spit out untrue facts about what's happening right now. And that's why we're seeing a rise of hate crimes in the AAPI community. We're seeing a rise in hate crimes at school, at the workplace, when people are just riding the bus to and from work. And it's really disgusting. And so we have an onus to call out these things when we see it, and making sure that we stand alongside our AAPI community members, and not just AAPI, but all across the country of marginalized communities that are being attacked because of the hateful rhetoric that's coming out of this administration. So definitely agree. We need to hold people accountable, and we got to do our part as well.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're right there as well. I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened. It happened when SARS was out, right? We attacked the Asian community when it came out with SARS. We attacked the Middle East community when it came out with MERS. Every single time there's a different crisis or event, there's always a scapegoat. There's always a boogeyman. But here's the thing. This is one of the things that I want to highlight. You know, I went to the Black Campaign School. I want to say it was like two or 3 years ago. It was held in DC. And one of the things they pointed out was that of all of the elected officials that are Republicans, 97% are white. When it comes to Democrats, when you look at the entire demographic of Democrats that are elected, 92% are white. That is not representative of the country. It's not representative of the beautiful diversity that we have here. And quite frankly, you need to have champions that are going to be out there that are going to call this stuff out. And if we have leadership that is unwilling to step up and to call out these injustices, to call out the hate and to stop it, then we need to replace them.
Yeah, I think this is also a great opportunity if you're watching and you have friends and family that are not involved in the political process, is to go look up who's your current representative. One of the things in the United States that many people cannot even tell me their current representative's name. They have no idea who their US congressional representative is, for example. Look them up, see what they've done, and look at their competition, look who's running. Because one of the things that we talk about a lot is we talk about, you know, the guy at the very top all the time. But we have, you know, over 500 people in our Congress that are representing us, that their job is to represent every single person in the United States. And we should be actively involved in figuring out who is representing us and why, what are they doing? What are they saying? Are they actually doing a good job? Imagine if you had a small business, or if you had a medium-sized business and you had employees and you were paying them a really great salary, a six-figure salary for that matter, and they weren't executing on their job. They weren't doing their work. How many months would you keep them on payroll before you were like, no, thank you? Every 2 years, you get to re-elect or reassess your US congressional candidates' performance.
Yeah.
And yet we, for example, in my district, I have a 9-term Trump-endorsed GOP representative, who in 2 decades has done nothing for this district. So find out who's representing you, because it's not just about who's in Congress right now, but who are you going to allow you to represent you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, for us here, we've had the same incumbent for 12 cycles, 24 years. And during those 24 years, he has only faced, token opposition. For us, this is one of the bluest districts, okay? We're like 80% Democrats. So really, when there is a Republican that runs, rarely does that happen. We typically have protests, campaigns that run as third parties. We don't really have legitimate challengers that ever challenge. In fact, for our campaign, we're the first legitimate challenger in the 24 years against the incumbent, and we've raised more money than all of his challengers in the primaries combined over the last 23 years. That's sad. I think that the combination of the gerrymandering and the money in politics makes for very safe seats. I don't know, your seat is probably purple down there now, Donna. You're about to flip that one, but here in a lot of places, people get they just get stuck because there's no hope, there's no opportunity to have a choice. That's one of the reasons why we're stepping up here, is to provide a challenge, provide a choice, provide an alternative to the same business as usual. We need to have people that are going to actually represent and fight for the people, as opposed to continuing to take corporate money and doing the will of the corporations over the will of the people.
So actually,
this is a good opportunity. Oh, sorry. I think it's a good opportunity to let the viewers know that there's a lot of similarity between Albert and Lauren's district, and there's a lot of similarity between Nabilah's and my district in terms of we're running in red districts, which are very close. Nabilah pointed out hers was, I think, the closest race, right, in 2018 in the entire country. My district is only 2.9% from flipping blue. So in 2018, that was just 8,000 votes. And then in terms of Albert and Lauren, that you are running in, I want to say mostly blue, right? Pretty heavy.
Yeah, mine's a D plus 24.
Yeah, there's no chance that anything but a Democrat will win this seat. And the major really tough election is the Democratic primary, which for us is June 23rd. And my incumbent, my opponent, has been in office for 26, going on 27 years.
Wow.
And just like, you know what, Albert, our races are really similar. As you said, she signs on to the right things sometimes. Other times it's mind-boggling just how far off she is from what a progressive should vote like.
But here's the thing. I mean, it's not even supposed to be a career, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have representatives that represent us. 26 years, 24 years, those are longer terms than Vladimir Putin's been in office. Now, he's just gone and flipped the constitution of Russia so that he can be in power for another 18 years. And we say, our voters say that we're frustrated with Congress. We're upset that we have people that aren't fighting for us. Here's your opportunity to fight. Here's your opportunity to make things happen, to change things. Okay. For me and Lauren, we're trying to make blue states bluer. We're trying to make blue districts bluer. We're trying to get, the complacency out, and to actually have someone that's going to truly represent you, and to try to get this government to do what it's supposed to do, which is to work for the people and not for corporations.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just wanted to comment.
Yamuna, just jump in. You're the moderator.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But I just wanted to say, it's not only just xenophobia and racism that the AAPI community is feeling right now. First of all, everyone's susceptible to this pandemic, and everyone can get it. And also, the AAPI community is overrepresented in frontline healthcare worker careers. So I have these statistics: 17% of doctors, 9% of physician's assistants, 10% of nurses in the United States are of Asian descent. So these are the people putting their lives on the line every single day so that we can make it through this pandemic. And I know, Donna, you brought up, to me the other day that Andrew Yang had mentioned that Asians should show how American they are right now. First of all, Asian Americans are American, and they're overrepresented in the essential workers that are keeping us from not dying right now. So thank you to the AAPI community who are American, and no one has to prove that to anybody.
So actually, before everybody else jumps in, because I know this is a really timely topic, and I think it's something that I'd like to see all of you guys speak to. Andrew Yang, for context, in an op-ed that he wrote in the Washington Post just a couple of days ago, he wrote the following: "We Asian Americans need to embrace and show our Americanness in ways we never have before. We need to step up, help our neighbors, donate gear, vote, wear red, white, and blue, volunteer, fund aid organizations, and do everything in our power to accelerate the end of this crisis. We should show without a shadow of the doubt that we are Americans and we will do our part for our country in this time of need." Do any of you guys have a response to this? Agree or disagree?
Agree. I mean, we're already Americans. We don't need to conform into this idea that I need to wear red, white, and blue and a cowboy hat for people to accept who I am. That's just obnoxious. And I think that's just unhealthy messaging, especially if I was really disappointed to see that coming from him.
I expected it from him.
I think that if anything, we need to embrace who we are, right? And be authentic to who we are. And I think that's what makes this country so beautiful, that we are a land of immigrants, that we are so culturally diverse, and that we don't need to melt into a certain type of mold in order to fit into this country. I think that's really unhealthy to tell to people. And I think if, for people that are watching this, you need to just, step into who you are and not be afraid of who you are, and continue life like that.
Yeah, I think I would challenge anybody in this country. If you go to any of the top 10 Fortune 500 tech companies, you'll be hard pressed not to see an Asian or a South Asian in those companies. So the top companies in the United States are being headed up by Asian Americans. If you walk into any hospital, any clinic, anywhere in the United States, you're going to be hard pressed not to find a South Asian or an Asian physician or a nurse. If you walk into any of America's top 10 institutions, name whatever you want, liberal arts, technology universities, you're going to be hard pressed to not find professors who are Asian American, of South Asian descent, or of Asian descent. So if you're asking about who's contributing to the progress of the United States, of contributing to the wealth in this country, whether you look at people who work for a living all the way down into the lower socioeconomic stratum, all the way up to our top expertise in this country, there's Asians and South Asians in every single spot. So that's my answer.
Yeah, look, for me, I've never been a fan of Yang. I have found a lot of the things that comes out of his mouth to be tropes against the Asian community. I think that, I can understand, I can feel, and I can understand where he's coming from. But here's the thing. We need to make sure that there is no hyphen. We got to say Asian American, we got to say African American. We don't say European American. And maybe we should. Maybe that will help to stop this default that everything American is white, because it's not. This country was created by colonizers who came over and took over land from the indigenous populations here. Here in our area, I'm with the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. I'm on the board with that organization. Our headquarters are on 82nd and Division in Portland, and it's called Orchards 82. And the reason why it's called Orchards 82 is because that area used to be orchards, apple orchards, that were owned by Japanese and Asian American families until World War II, until the Japanese internment. And then they lost all of that property. Eventually, we got a little bit of it back to have this headquarters. But when it comes to any kind of crises, it is always othering. It's always marginalizing folks that shouldn't be. I'm not going to say, I don't think that we need to say that really single out any group or organization. We need to come together. We need to build and fight for an America that is for all of us. Okay. I just do not believe that you follow what Yang says. I mean, that's the same thing that they told us in World War II. Oh, you got to fight hard to prove that you're American. Tuskegee Airmen fought hard to prove that they were American. They come back and they're still treated like second-class citizens. We got to stop the treatment of folks as being second-class citizens. And it's not by trying to show yourself as being more American. You're American. Okay. Everyone here is an American.
It's not, it's certainly not wearing red, white, and blue. My goodness.
Not. So moving on just a little bit. So misinformation about what our president has referred to in the past as the Chinese virus. It's also had a disproportionate financial impact on immigrant-owned businesses. So what do you four think that the role of the US Congress and the federal government in general, what do you think it should be in supporting small businesses through these uncertain times?
Bail out the people. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. When this all was hitting the fan, we didn't have any discussion. Trillions of dollars were immediately pumped into Wall Street to save the assets of the 1%, without deliberation, without discussion. And then after weeks of the deliberation and discussion, our members of Congress decided to give another $500 billion to corporations with no strings attached. And then maybe we'll see something by May in the amount of $1,200. That's not cutting it. We need to
qualify.
We need to bail out the people. Okay. We need to make sure that we have at least an emergency economic support of $2,000 per person until this crisis is over, at least a year after the crisis is over. We need a rent freeze. We need to take care of small businesses. Right now, the stimulus package as it stands, our small businesses, our mom and pops don't have the legal background or to understand how to navigate these things. The people that are gonna benefit off of these packages already know the deal. Okay, they already have people lined up to help them secure the funds, which they may or may not need. We need to make it simplified, streamlined, and get the money directly to the people, get the money directly to the small businesses.
No, I agree. I was just actually helping my mom with her unemployment. And there were so many things that she had to answer that I feel like she was having trouble with. And I feel like a lot of people from immigrant communities, it takes them, they don't have the legal jargon to figure out the fastest way in getting help. Right now, Asian American businesses generate $700 billion in annual revenue and employ nearly 4.5 million workers. As we all know, minorities open up small businesses at a rate much higher than our white counterparts. And so it's incredibly important that we give small businesses aid quickly, minorities-owned small businesses, and make sure they have the resources to stay solvent. We generate so many jobs in this country. We are the backbone of this country. And I feel that the current CARES Act, it's confusing. There's a lot of red tape. And what we need to do is make it easier so that the money can go into people's pockets as soon as possible.
Yeah, so to add to that, I think there's three things in this $2.2 trillion bill that really stand out. One is the $1,200 that anyone who makes less than $75,000 in 2019 or 2018 can get has been tied to your tax filing. So if you don't file taxes or you don't make enough to file taxes, and I have veterans in my district that are in that situation. There are homeless people who don't file taxes. There are students who are over 16 that are dependent on their parents and don't file separate taxes on their own. All of these people would not get this $1,200. So they've put barriers and hurdles for people to be able to get that. That's number one. Number two, even though this has been enacted, most people will not see that $1,200. Like the fastest you might get it is the third week of April, if that. And most people who haven't filed a 2019 or maybe haven't filed a 2018 and don't have direct deposit set up will see it many weeks later than that. And there's no guarantee of how many weeks later you're going to see it. So you have April 1st came and went. And before these small businesses, there's $377 billion in there for small businesses. But before that, any single small business can see a penny of that. Many of them had to lay off or furlough their workers right away. Like if you went into a shutdown or a stay-at-home order in your county, you had to shut down your restaurant immediately. And you basically could not meet rent. Like even if you're a small business, you have to pay rent for that facility that you're using, that area that you're using. So number two is that for small businesses, they've made it extremely difficult. And most small businesses, like you pointed out, both Nabilah and Albert, is that it's going to take them time to figure out how to even get this $377 billion. The mom and pop shops just don't have that expertise to go in and figure out how they're going to get it. And the third thing that every single American should be completely outraged about is that there was absolutely no need to rush in $500 billion to large corporations that aren't hurting to pay their bills tomorrow on April 1st. They just gave that away, no strings attached, and the oversight on that $500 billion is minimal to nothing. And here's the fact. That $2.2 trillion bill was written by lobbyists. Do you think a single Congress member today wrote a single line of that 900-page document? Do you think any of their policy people, their staff, wrote any of those lines? That $500 billion for corporations has been sitting around, and it was just shoved in. And the reason that you have all these challenges with even getting this minute $1,200 is because nobody thought of the American people. Nobody thought of the guy who lost his job on March 15th that doesn't have 2 weeks of pay. Nobody thought of that person. They wasted 2 to 3 weeks to make sure they got that $500 billion out. And by the way, that $2.2 trillion bill wasn't the first coronavirus bill. They passed something else prior to that, again, which had nothing to do with the American people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, there's two things that I'm taking from what you're saying. Number one is the money in politics, the lobbyists and everything else. Number two is that we have an oligarchy. Okay, the vast majority of the folks that are in Congress right now are part of the 1%. They do not live like the rest of us in this country. They don't understand the struggle. They don't understand what it means to try to make rent versus trying to figure out if you're going to put a gallon of gas in or get a gallon of milk for your kid. These are situations that they simply do not understand. We need to have more citizen representatives, people who actually know what it means to work on minimum wage, folks that have had to go through those struggles. And as long as we have a ruling class, as long as we have representatives who really truly only represent corporations, we're going to continue to see this business as usual. We're going to continue to see these atrocities where we have $500 billion just go poof without any strings attached.
So currently Congress today is about 50% of it is millionaires. The average net worth of a congressperson is $500,000. Less than 25% is women, less than 10% is women of color. And I believe we need to have, that doesn't look like America today.
No.
And we need a government that is by us and that will work for us. And it is clear the current one is not working for working families. And I truly believe if all of us were in Congress today, all four of us, and so many of the great people that I've connected with running for office, if we were in office today, we would have a bailout that actually bailed out working people and didn't the fact that we had a corporate bailout at the same time we had a bailout for people is just obnoxious. And that was prior, and we had a $500 billion slush fund for corporations is absolutely out of touch. And the fact that we think $1,200 right now for people that have been laid off is going to be enough is just incredibly out of touch.
Well, this is the same thing.
We just keep thinking that trickle down economics work. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. It's never once worked. And why don't we try trickle up economics for a change? We have to give the relief to the average everyday person who's struggling to survive and put food on the table, which increases buying power, which could go to help the corporations if that's your end goal. But if you keep handing all this money to corporations, it's going to stop in the senior executives. They're going to put it in their pocket and be like, whoops, sorry, everyone, because that's what happens every single time. And it just makes me so mad.
It's the same thing. This is the same thing as 2008 all over again, except magnitudes higher. You know, Wall Street was bailed out. Main Street was not. You know, folks and their mortgages were foreclosed on. People went bankrupt. We were able to bail out GM and Ford. We were able to bail out Bear Stearns, you know, the culprits of the whole situation, but we can't take care of the people. And that's the thing. I think, again, and Nabilah highlighted it right now, we need to have regular folks in office. You know, we need to have us, one of us, some of us there to be the gatekeepers, to check, to call things out, to say this is not working. We can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result.
I think the one thing that all four of us can really point out to our viewers is that, look, $1,200 in a small rural town, let's say in Texas, is not the same as, you know, a big city, like if you're living in New York City or somewhere else like that. It makes absolutely no sense to say that every single person in the United States is going to get a same amount. Our government has such great information, zip code by zip code. They know exactly what the cost of living is. It doesn't make sense that if you live in New York City and you make $99,000 and a year, you're going to get $0. The middle class, by the way, and a lot of times people don't, you know, people will say something like, well, if you make over $100,000, you don't really need the $1,200. Well, this bill had $500 billion for corporations, but $0 for middle-class families that make over $150,000 or individuals that make over $100,000. And if you live in a major city, you cannot survive on that kind of money. So just look at the contrast of who they're leaving out, number one. And number two, remember this $2.2 trillion is a $6,000+ loan on every single adult and child in this country.
It just goes to show it's the priority. Corporations are the priority and we are not. And it's time that we realize that and come together and vote these people out. And we also have people who are selling $20 million worth of stocks with non-public information, profiting off of people dying right now.
Yeah.
And that's who represents us. People who throw money at corporations for their CEO friends to put in their pockets and then donate that money back. And people who are profiting off of us dying. So that's why I'm running, and I really, really hope that all of us make it in, because I want to start seeing the priority being people. And I think that would also benefit the economy at large.
So I want to start wrapping up because it is close to 9 p.m. EST. But we actually do have a question relating to the stimulus bill from a viewer. So how do you four candidates believe that states can coordinate to get the PPE equipment and the other equipment they need, or to share it from state to state, since the federal government has been thus far pretty uncooperative with the needs and the wants from different states?
Yeah, I mean, the example with Oregon, you know, we've made an assessment here of what we need and what we can part with, and we've decided to go ahead and coordinate with New York to try to send that their way, since they have a significantly greater need. I think that generally speaking, the several states can get together and discuss, and we're seeing that happen right now. We're seeing governors from across the country man up and woman up, where the president has not been able to do so. And I think that we need to continue to coordinate and work together, because this, again, is a global crisis, is a pandemic. It affects all people regardless of your socioeconomic background, and we need to see what we can do. Now, we shouldn't have been in this position in the first place. Quite frankly, we should have had reserves. We should have had reserves all over the place. But here's the thing. Our companies like 3M manufacture the majority of the PPE in China. We've shifted all of our manufacturing outside of the United States, chasing the lowest labor inputs so that they can create the greatest profits, and not really taking a look at the total cost. And here is an example of the total cost. So we need to start reassessing how we calculate costs, and take a look at the complete cost of everything that we do moving forward.
It's also an example of, and I see this all the time, if the government did its job, then charity wouldn't have to exist.
Bingo.
So if Trump, for example, had taken this crisis seriously as soon as he had information that none of us did, then they could have started preparing by creating and producing the supplies and equipment that was necessary. But instead, he called it a hoax and twiddled his thumbs for a while, and here we are. But I look at the fact that, people are praising like Mark Zuckerberg for donating a few ventilators. That's fine. Thanks so much, Mark Zuckerberg. But if the government did their job, then that wouldn't even be necessary. And it's not up to billionaires to do the government's job. The government should do it. And that's why we're running to make sure that they do.
Well, that was another thing you raised also, is the fact that those billionaires aren't paying their fair share of taxes.
Yes.
And those fair share of taxes could have helped build up the reserves as well.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a big MMT person, and the whole thing is the federal government can pay for whatever it wants.
Well, we've already seen that this week with the $1 trillion given away to Wall Street.
Yeah, and they don't question that. Nobody thinks, how are you going to pay for Wall Street bailouts? That's never a question. But whenever it comes to making sure that people can breathe on a ventilator, people are looking at price tags.
Right.
And that's exactly what's going on right now. The government can pay for more ventilators. We could have paid for more ventilators months ago, but they just didn't, because they don't care.
Right. We don't have a unified approach right now. And that's why we have FEMA and states putting out bids against each other. And it's really, it's terrible, the situation that we're in right now. We could have avoided it. As far as states working together, Albert, as you mentioned, states doing an assessment, figuring out who needs what. We have limited resources right now, and helping the states that are in the greatest of need. It's really tragic seeing these hospitals go out without PPE right now and begging people, can you please help us make masks? Like, people that live at home, this is how they giving us guides on how to make masks for them. That's where we're at right now. But I think if we can come together, what I really would like to see is, as much as I don't like Donald Trump, for him to actually step up, right? And for the sake of the American people, actually take this seriously and the federal government in a way where we can have a unified approach to this and mitigate the damage that's going to be done to this country and the loss of life.
Yeah, and I think one thing I can add to that is, long term, what are we going to learn from this? What we know right now is that we had a major challenge in the medical infrastructure. We don't have enough protective equipment. We don't have enough hospitals. We don't have enough primary care physicians. We don't have enough nurses in this country. And so long term, if we want to cover the 80 million plus people who are uninsured and underinsured, who are not going to a primary care physician, who don't have the ability to go see anybody until it's too late and they're going to the ER room, we have to scale the healthcare infrastructure. And not only if we had done that ahead of time, would we have a much easier time today, right now, addressing these challenges, but going forward, are we going to prepare for the next pandemic? Are we going to do something to cover the 80 million people who have no coverage? And I think one thing that we didn't talk about at all is, there are so many people here today, that person that's cooking that burger to go during this coronavirus, And that person that's delivering it to your home, many of them have no health insurance. Many of them are actually undocumented, and they're not going to get a single penny of that $1,200.
This crisis right here just simply highlights why we need Medicare for all. I mean, this employee-based private health insurance is failing right now. People are losing their jobs, they're losing their health insurance. And then, of course, folks on the front line working in food service don't even have it in the first place. We need to have a universal single-payer Medicare for all system that's going to take care of everyone, because if we don't take care of everyone during this crisis, we will not be able to resolve this crisis.
There is no compromise to that, by the way. It's Medicare for all absolutely right now. It should have been a long time ago, but now look how it's working, that people can't afford to go get COVID-19 treatment if they have it. People can't even afford to go get tested. So they could be cooking our food and not even knowing it. And here we go with not flattening the curve. And also just piggybacking off of what you said, Donna, we are seeing that we don't have the infrastructure in place. So now is also the time to look at the fact that people might avoid going to school to study medicine, become a physician's assistant, become a nurse, because they're afraid of having 6 figures of student debt to pay back. So now is also the time to alleviate that stress and that burden and make sure that higher education is tuition free so that people can study the things that they're passionate about. And that includes medicine. I got a message on my phone the other day where New York City is looking for thousands more healthcare workers right now. And I don't know if they're going to find them because I don't know if they exist, but we could create more. If anybody has any questions about whether we can, provide the care to everyone who needs it, we absolutely can, but let's take the steps that we need to make sure that we're creating more doctors, nurses, and physician's assistants while we're at it.
So before we close, it looks like we're nearing the end of the hour. I want to close on a slightly brighter, more optimistic note. What random acts of kindness have you 4 candidates seen in your districts, within your communities, that have really inspired you the most about the potential that we have as a country and as different local communities during the current pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, here I've seen so much, so many people out and about that are doing the right things. I saw a man delivering sandwiches to houseless folks around here. We have a large houseless population. We have people that are picking up groceries for the elderly and the invalid. We are building. We have truly a community here, and people are looking out for each other.
Yeah, one of my volunteers called me the other day and said, I haven't been able to do much phone banking for you, Donna, because I've been sewing masks at home. And she told me that one of her friends was looking for a mask really badly because her husband has cancer and his immune system is compromised. And she was able to tell them, hey, I have a mask, I can give it to you. And not only is she sewing these masks, she's sterilizing them. She's putting them in sterile bags and then giving them to anybody who wants them completely free. And there's nothing you can say to that coming to a person's aid at their most needed time, that's just so inspiring. And I can't imagine why we wouldn't work hard to make sure that we do the work of the American people who are giving their everything to help people during this time.
I'm on does anyone know, do any of you guys know what Nextdoor is? The Nextdoor?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have never been so invested in Nextdoor than I am right now in self-quarantine, and seeing people, strangers in my community that I'm now getting to know more personally. People are telling each other, like, look, this dollar store has toilet paper, go over here. Or like, this place ran out of food, but you can go over here. I think that people are really reaching out to each other in this time of crisis. It's very heartwarming to see how we're all coming together. Before, people weren't talking to each other in a way where we were helping each other. And I feel like now, even though this is tragic, it is bringing a lot of us closer.
Ironically, social distancing and all.
Totally. And so in New York, we're pretty famous for not knowing our neighbors. And I am embarrassed to say I know my community outside of my apartment complex, but I never introduce myself to my neighbor. And I'm so embarrassed to say that. Forgive me, but New Yorkers get it. But I have to say, we have, there's a Facebook group in my building of people that live here. And I love the conversations of people being like, hey, I'm available. Let me know if you need me to pick up your medicine. People just being like, hey, these are recipes you can use for things that are in your pantry. By the way, like this place next door has yeast. Hey, there's a to-go cocktail place you can order around the corner from us. And it's just creating this community. It's really beautiful. So it is the silver lining in this, is that people are coming together. And I just hope that we take this time to like really stay together. It really is us versus like the 0.1% at the very top that really enjoys the status quo. It's right. All of us that need to come together and stay together and bring about some real change so that people aren't afraid to go to the doctor if they need to go.
Hey, Nabilah, I got to tell you, I used to avoid next door like the plague, but no, you're right. I mean, people are reaching out through that app, trying to help people out a lot. And then Donna, to your point with the mask, we've got like 6,000 people working on putting masks together. Somebody reached out the other day to try to get connected with our OHSU up on the hill to send them masks as well. So people are doing what they can. And I know that we have a huge stitching community here that's building out masks as well.
So actually, that actually segues really well into this next question that we have coming up. Someone was asking, so as community members, as activists, as people who are active in our communities, how do we get the next stimulus to do right by us and by the people?
Bail out
Call
the
your
people.
congressperson.
Yeah.
Seriously, hold them accountable. We're trying to replace them, but in the meantime, hold them accountable, because that's their job. Signing their name on bills sometimes and doing the right thing sometimes is not their job. Their job is to make sure that their constituents don't en masse become homeless and die.
Yep. If you care about the guy who's stocking your grocery shelves, if you care about the guy who's making the pizza delivery, if you care about the nurses and the doctors that are saving your family in ER, then call your congressperson, call your senators, call your US representatives, tell them that the United States people need to survive and they need to be given cash, no hurdles, no means testing, and it needs to make sure that it addresses people in high cost living cities as well.
No, I agree. We need to communicate our outrage and let them. I know that a lot of folks that represent districts don't even live in their own districts, or they live in DC. Reminding them who they work for, reminding them how we're hurting right now, and making sure that they put in, not just a $1,200 one-time payment for an individual, but it has to be something like $2,000 per individual until we're over this pandemic. They need to understand that we need resources, and that this is not a moment where you pander for corporations, that you need to be looking out for your neighbor.
Look, I mean, politics is about who gets what and how. And right now, it seems like the 1% always comes out on top. We need to flip the script. We need to get all of these candidates here you're seeing elected. We need to look at the hundreds of progressives across the country. We need to flip this and get a brand new Congress.
Thank you so much, all of you guys, for participating in this conversation. I certainly learned a lot. And before we go, I actually want to give all of you the chance to close out and present your closing remarks. Make sure that our viewers know what they can do to support your campaign moving forward. I know all of you have really tough primaries ahead. Lauren, do you want to start?
Sure. So again, Lauren Ashcraft, I'm running in New York's 12th Congressional District. And I am running to make sure that people are put first. It's been so long that we've gone completely ignored. We can flip this and make our representatives listen to us, and better yet, elect representatives that are inspired by you, not by their corporate PAC donors, but by you. That will look so different. And all of these things like Medicare for all and tuition-free higher education and abolishing student debt and making sure that nobody is afraid to go to the doctor when they need to go. That's doable. We just need the people in office to fight for us and have the votes and have the numbers. And every single election cycle, well, the four of us are going to make it in this time, but with every single election cycle, we're going to get more people-powered representatives in office fighting for us. It's possible. We have to do it. Now's the time. And you're seeing it, the urgency, all of the things that our representatives haven't even bothered to prepare for, haven't even bothered to think about. They're all glaring right now. It's insanity. So here's how you can help my campaign. Go to laurenashcraft.com. Right now, we are really focused on reaching every single one of our neighbors and doing a wellness check on them, and also letting them know that there's a really important election coming up in which they can choose between a 26-year incumbent who takes a crap ton of corporate PAC money or somebody who's totally people-powered, grassroots, fighting for their community. That's me. So definitely sign up to volunteer with us. act.laurenashcraft.com is where all of the shifts are that you can sign up for. I know Yamuna on our team has done a few, and it's a really inspirational experience because you get to meet people in my community and make sure they're okay. And if they need anything, then we deploy our volunteers to go help. So act.laurenashcraft.com. You can follow me at Vote Ashcraft. And thank you so much for supporting this movement, for taking time out of your day and tuning in, because people like us are trying to make sure that bills in the future don't completely ignore the people and are not throwing money at corporations at our cost. So thank you so much. Also, thank you, Yamuna, for moderating. You're amazing. And I'm so happy to have you on my team.
Donna, you want to go next?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Yamuna, not only for moderating, but also doing all of the background work, organizing this, and also to your teams who did all the IT stuff to put this together. We really appreciate it. A couple of things about my race is, like I mentioned, this district is only 2.9% from flipping blue. That was only 8,000 votes in 2018. In 2020, since the last cycle, we had more than 50,000 eligible voters move into just one of two counties in this district, all young families with children that tend to vote blue. This is a district we can flip. This race started with, at one time, a dozen people in the race. 6 people made it into the ballot. Our campaign made it into the runoffs. Not only did we make it into the runoffs, we led in Bell County, which is where we need to close the gap in our district. So look, if you want to bring real change, remember your congressional candidates, your representatives are the ones that are participating in legislation that impacts you. And it doesn't matter where you are in the entire country. I could be representing the amazing people of Texas in Texas's 31st district, but you're sending an ally to Congress that will legislate, that will impact you no matter where you are in the country. So I know right now a lot of people cannot donate, but if you do have the ability, our campaign is 100% grassroots. It's because of generous people like you making donations that we were able to make it to the runoffs, and we can win this district. So I encourage you to join. And if you're not able to give, if you want to make a few calls for our campaign, you can phone bank for us from anywhere in the country. All we ask is you call 25 people a day when you feel like it. Maybe it'll take you 30 minutes of your day. Take a break from Netflix or from work, and call some voters in Texas to find out what they're up to, see what they're doing. and tell them to vote for Donna Imam in the upcoming runoff. So we need your help. And together, if we come together, we can do this. We can bring change. We can better legislate, and we can do better for the American people. So join us at votefordonna.com. And I don't have the cool background like Albert and Lauren do. So it's votefordonna.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. Nabilah, do you want to go next?
Yes, Yamuna, thank you for organizing this, truly. And it's a pleasure to be on this call with all of you. Again, my name is Nabilah Islam, and I'm running in Georgia's 7th Congressional District. It's an open seat. It's traditionally been red. I'm running to flip it blue. And I'm a big believer that when you're not on the at the table, that you're on the menu. And it's been so clear that in our community, instead of seeing our diversity as an opportunity, it's been seen as a problem. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 20% of the district that doesn't have access to healthcare. We have one of the most diverse districts in the country, yet one of the highest deportations in the country as well. And this is a district that our Republican leadership has truly left behind and is not advocating and fighting for working people. This is a working class district. And I'm someone that grew up, and I really believe that folks that are from your communities are the ones that are going to fight hardest for that community. I have skin in the game, and our election is less than 40 days away on May 19th, unless they don't change it again. And this is a district that I know that it can flip blue. It's not if, it's when. And it's a district that deserves to have reflective representation. It's a majority minority district, and it's never had a congresswoman ever or a person of color representing this district. And I'm someone that's advocating for progressive policies that are going to uplift our communities and implement the transformational change that we so desperately need here. So if you want to join our campaign and volunteer, we're doing a lot of text banking, a lot of phone banking. You can go to www.nabilahforcongress.com. That's NABILAHFOR Congress. We're hosting a bunch of virtual town halls that are coming up so people can learn more about the campaign. But I really believe that like Donna, we have a 2-step primary. So I have to make my primary runoff, and then from there, make it into the general election. But I am confident that with everyone's help, we can make it into this runoff and become the nominee and flip this district blue.
Thank you, Yamuna, for moderating. Thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate getting to know all of you to this last hour. My name is Albert Lee. I'm running for Congress here in the 3rd District of Oregon. I think that it's time that we have a change. Here in the state of Oregon, we've had over 60 representatives for Congress. And out of those 60s, we've only had one who wasn't white. We've only had one who was an immigrant, and it happened to be the same person. So 1 out of 64. I think it's time that we have better representation. I think it's time here in one of the most progressive districts in the country, we have more than just lip service progressivism. We need somebody who isn't going to say that they wrote the Green New Deal and at the same time hold millions of dollars of fossil fuel stocks. We need somebody who isn't going to say that they're a social justice champion, but then turn and vote for the Defense of Marriage Act and Sesta Fosta. We need somebody who isn't going to say that they are for overturning Citizens United and having publicly financed campaigns, yet take 65% of their funds from corporations. Now, if you look at our campaign, our incumbent has raised 10 to 1 more money than we have. But if you add the 65% from the corporations, and it goes up to 95% when you add the PACs on top of that, we've actually raised the same amount of money. I think that that is indicative of what people want. Here in this district, we want leaders and fighters that are going to really do something for us and not just tell us one thing and do the exact opposite. Now, if you would like to help, you can do so right here at albertlee2020.com. Of course, we need contributions to continue our campaign. Our primary is May 19th, just like Nabilah's, except here we're in a very blue district like Lauren. So the decision is truly made on May 19th. It's not November. November is all said and done. Whoever the Democrat is that wins on May 19th will move on to win in November. So if you want an opportunity to voice your choice, I ask that you sign up and register as a Democrat before April 28th so that you have the opportunity to vote in this closed primary. on May 19th. Now, we're always looking for volunteers who are going to be able to help us with phone banking, reaching out to our constituents as well as other contributors. So again, reach out to us at albertlee2020.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Albert. Thank you all 4 of you candidates for dedicating your time and your attention to this town hall. It's been wonderful having you, and thank you for fighting the good fight. And all of you guys back at home, wherever you guys are, for tuning in and taking a break from Netflix or whatever you're up to this. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and please, I encourage all of you to support the 4 candidates that were here today. However you can. There's going to be some tough primary races coming up, but I really think we can pull through. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.